We just got our second release of the beta for RetroPie for our Raspberry Pi 4s, and I'm going to show you all the improvements. This is Steve from Restalgia, and let's get started. So what we have here is Raspberry Pi 4 running RetroPie. Now, you guys saw I did a previous video not too long ago, a few weeks back, on a beta build. This is a beta 2 from the same development group. So this is the Supreme build. It is absolutely amazing. Things have come a very long way in the past few weeks. These guys are clearly working really hard to get this thing up and running, to make it as amazing and functional as possible. In the previous beta version, we had a ton of graphical issues with some of the retro consoles like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, things like that. For the most part, those are all fixed and corrected. They're all running really, really well. Now, I do want to mention we still don't have any of the video drivers, so there's going to be some graphical issues. There's also going to be some videos that just straight up don't play, and I will show you guys that or talk about that when we talk about some of the consoles here. But generally, it is a substantially better build. This actually feels very much like you've gone over to the RetroPie website and downloaded an official build. There aren't any problems that I've really noticed. There's a couple little things here and there that are just not ideal, but they are working on it. Again, this is a beta build, so you can't expect it to be perfect. But in terms of playing games, it does a great job. Now, I've got a ton of things loaded up on here, and I don't want to go through some of the retro stuff with you guys. I did that in the last video. The Raspberry Pi 4 can absolutely play retro games, no problem. Super Nintendo, Atari, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Genesis, all of those things, 100% it can play no problems. So I don't want to do a focus on them in this video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about some of the harder to play consoles like Dreamcast or PlayStation Portable, PSP. And I do want to show you guys some substantial improvements that they've made in those consoles and just how much better the Raspberry Pi 4 is at playing those types of games. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to shoot over to our PSP. We're going to start with PSP because I was really, really super impressed with it, to be completely honest. And we're going to jump into the game list here. And you're going to see there's a bunch of games that I've loaded up on here. Clearly, I'm not going to take the time and show you guys everything. But what I will tell you is that there has been a huge improvement. And one of the most notable ones, in a game like God of War, as you guys have probably known, if you're a fan of the series and you wanted to emulate this, it's really tough to emulate it. Even if you were trying to play this on a PC, it does play obviously, but it's not incredible. And I just want to show you guys how much improvement has happened with the Raspberry Pi 4. If you guys have ever tried to play this on the Raspberry Pi 3 or your PlayStation Classic or Super Nintendo Classic or NES Classic or any of those other classic consoles, you'll know Chains of Olympus is completely unplayable. You can't barely get through the menu without huge frame rate drops, a ton of glitches, and when you actually get into gameplay, if you're willing to sit there for 20 minutes to let it load, it's brutal. You can't really do much. So I'm not going to talk too much more. I'm just going to jump into the game and show you guys how much of a difference we've got here. Alright guys, so I skipped over the intro just because it is a little bit of video footage that I didn't think was necessary to show, but it does play really well. The audio isn't crackly or anything like that. It does run actually quite well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you guys a little bit of gameplay here, and I think you guys will be really impressed. As I said, it's not 100% perfect, but it is playable. There aren't many frame rate drops. The game itself runs and plays really well. Aren't very many graphical issues on screen. It's just really, really impressive. Now, I do want to make note here that I am currently running a DualShock 4 controller that's hardwired into my Raspberry Pi. And I just wanted to make note of that because that's going to become important once we start accessing the emulator menus. Now, one thing I think that they are working on improving is the resolution on screen. So as you can see, it's relatively low res, and it isn't terrible to watch on screen. So what we're going to go ahead and do is just skip over a little bit forward so you guys can see like a mini boss battle. You guys can actually see how well it plays. Alright guys, so there it is. We've got a mini boss battle there. You can see just how much better this game runs than it ever has on any of those other mini consoles. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to jump into the next game, and I'm going to go ahead and switch over there. So what I've decided to do is on the bottom right hand corner of the screen, I'm going to put whatever game I'm playing. I'm going to put the box art down there just so that way you guys know at a glance what game I am going to be demoing out and showing you guys in this video. And this is one of those games that a lot of people really love. Kingdom Hearts is a huge franchise. It's got a ton of supporters. And yes, this game was technically playable on previous versions, but there was a lot of graphical issues and it was some frame rate drops, and it just really wasn't enjoyable in my opinion. I've fussed around with it a little bit, and it does run substantially smoother. I haven't noticed any frame rate drops. Haven't really noticed any graphical issues. It just plays the way it's supposed to play. It just feels really good.
I've got time to spare.
So I'm just going to show you guys a tiny bit of footage just to show you guys that it is running properly. And after that, we're going to swap into the next game.
What? You want a piece of me too? Yeah! Ah, yeah! 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 Ah, yeah! Win! Rock!
Alright, so the next on the list is going to be Assassin's Creed Bloodlines. And this is one of those titles that I had some trouble with getting running on some of the previous builds that I've had. So I can show you guys that it is running really well. The frame rate itself is okay. It's not perfect, but it's definitely it's certainly playable. There's no problems in that area at all. It's really interesting to see. I've never actually played this game before, so in terms of the actual console and everything and how well it plays, I'm really impressed. So Marvel's Ultimate Alliance is one of those games that I had mentioned. You have some issues without the video drivers. You don't actually get any of the video footage from the intro sequences or from the cutscenes. So you're going to want to keep that in mind. Now I do want to mention that this is a game that I also had a lot of frame rate issues with any of the other previous Raspberry Pi versions that I played. It does seem to be running substantially better now, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a little bit of footage here before we switch out of PSP and jump into Dreamcast.
Oh yeah, I'm the best at what I do, yeah.
So as I mentioned with Dreamcast, it is running much better. So again, I'm not going to waste your time. We're just going to jump into a few different games. And again, I'm going to be careful about what I put on. I don't want to get hit with a copyright strike while playing Crazy Taxi. But Crazy Taxi specifically is running substantially better. So if that is a game that you like to play, there isn't any audio glitches anymore. It just runs nice and cleanly. You guys can definitely load that up and enjoy it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into some Dreamcast games. So I decided to do Marvel vs. Capcom 2, not because it's a tough game to emulate, but it is a little bit better than it was running on the 3B Plus. And this is, again, all of these games are running on the stock settings. I haven't adjusted anything. I just figured I'd throw this in there because this is probably my favorite game on the Dreamcast, and I wanted to include it, and just to show you guys how much smoother it is actually running. So if you've played this before, you'll know that it can be played. It's definitely not a huge problem, but there are some graphical issues, and it is a little bit wonky sometimes. So as I mentioned, we're going to go ahead and check this out. So the next game I wanted to showcase is Soul Calibur, and the reason for that is, one, it's a really fun game, and two, it's probably the most visually stunning game on the Dreamcast. And I wanted to give you guys an idea of how well this type of game is going to run on your Raspberry Pi 4. So we're going to go ahead and jump into a fight here.
Strengthened the soul of King. You win! Battle 2, fight!
And I decided to show off Sonic Adventures as the final game, mostly because this is actually a game that's not running that well. So as you can see, there is a ton of graphical issues. The footage at the beginning of the game had a bunch of graphics missing altogether. I'm clearly really bad at this game, but I wanted to show it off just to show you guys a little bit of that. So I'm going to go ahead and get this playing now.
Come on, you big drip. Where you going?
So as you guys can see, there's lots of graphical issues going on here, and that's to be expected. Again, this is a beta, so we're not going to have everything perfect. And to be completely honest, there's going to be a ton of games eventually that aren't just going to work because there isn't enough processing power on the Raspberry Pi 4. But we have come so far just in the past few weeks since the first beta release. So I'm going to leave a link in the description down below for you guys to grab your own copy of this beta release, and you guys can play around with it. Major improvements are that we can now access it over Wi-Fi. We just put in the // and then you type in the IP address of the device and you can actually get access to load your games. Wi-Fi now works properly. You just go into the Wi-Fi settings and you can set it up that way. It's just much better now. So I highly recommend downloading it, getting it uploaded, and getting your Raspberry Pi out of the closet and up and running. That's all I've got for you for this video. Thank you so very much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment in the comment section below, and let me know what games you guys are having trouble with, or if you guys got some really hard games to play running on your Raspberry Pi 4 through this build. That's all I've got though. Thank you so very much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys again real soon.